Good morning. Well, actually, good morning, Scott. Good afternoon, Ted. You're listening to the DMZ America Podcast for Wednesday, February 12th, 2025. Coming to you from the left, I am editorial cartoonist Ted Rall.
And coming to you from the right, I'm editorial cartoonist Scott Stantis. So here we are.
Well, yeah, until we're not, I suppose.
60 years into the Trump second term.
How's it feeling?
It's exhausting. It is just exhausting because especially guys like you and me whose job it is to keep up with stuff. I mean, Bannon, at the beginning of this first Trump term in 2017 said this is their strategy. It's 3 things a day minimum. It's designed to keep especially the opposition off kilter. Well, if you're trying to keep track, it's really, really hard. And it's exhausting.
Yeah. And it's, I mean, I guess this is just a way of saying it's working, right?
It seems to be, although frankly, I'm still trying to see it. Maybe I'm too stupid to see it. We're going to have our friend Charles Lipson on again, because he's very good at telling precisely what he thinks. And generally he's right, what they're trying to achieve here. And I don't entirely understand it. I get blow stuff up, right? Break things, blow shit up, drain the swamp, all that stuff. But I don't see how this is doing that in a cohesive way. Do you? Am I just missing it? Am I just not on the same page?
Well, I think you're right. It's hard to see what the method to the madness is clearly there. The question is,
yes.
What is their method to it? One thing that's really throwing me off is that so much of this was not previewed during the campaign or even by anything that the president has said in the past. I mean, who knew that he had a hard-on for USAID? Who knew that the Consumer Protection Bureau was in his sight, in his crosshairs? He left them completely alone for 4 years as president the first time around when, he was president. Who knew that he wanted to invade Greenland or had any interest in Greenland or even had heard of Greenland? I mean, so there's all these things that, some things that are happening now. Hell, some of it's good and I didn't see it coming. Like our Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and the idea that our food could and should be made healthier. I didn't know that Donald Trump, who's famously an aficionado of Big Macs, was a guy who was gonna, who cared about trying to make us healthy again. It doesn't make any sense because
but you and I both
healthy.
I know. Don't you love that? Make America healthy again.
When were we healthy? We're getting healthier. Actually, we're fatter, but we've better food than we used to.
We've hit a plateau, and in fact, the life expectancy for American men has ticked down in the last few years. So, to say let's make America healthy again, when the hell were we healthy? You mean when we were being thrown into iron lungs, when we were
eating Swanson's TV dinner?
Yeah, or not eating at all, which is why we were all so skinny.
Yep.
And plus, the other thing is RFK Jr. has shown himself to be just no other way to put it, Ted. He's a liar. He's just flat out lying during these hearings and saying, I don't believe I'm a pro-vaxxer. My kids are pro-vaxxed. And it's true. But he's also said on a podcast that if he could go back in time, the one thing he would change, I'm not kidding, is to have his kids not be vaccinated. Now, a comedian came out and said, well, if you could go back in time and you're him and the one shot Kennedy, that's the one you'd fix. This guy is weird. He's unqualified, and he's dangerously lying to his confirmation hearing. I think he'll get confirmed because they're shoving these through, and that's and these guys.
Tulsi Gabbard just got through. As we speak.
This is amazing. And the thing is, the price you pay, you don't pay it until. How stupid is this going to sound? You don't pay it until the bill comes due. And that is, let's assume for a moment, there's a massive nuclear terror attack on Los Angeles. Is Tulsi Gabbard really the person you want to be heading this up? I mean,
Wait,
seriously?
Wait, he's Austin Butner in Los Angeles when this.
Well, okay. There are provisos, no doubt.
So it's not all. No, that's all I'm trying to say.
But there's a lot to be outraged about here. I am always and I've said this a bazillion times on our podcast, that I'm a small c conservative in the sense that I believe that you should have qualified people appointed to these roles. Now you would have opposition saying, listen, we've had qualified people there for decades. Look how fucked up things have gotten in many, many ways. And you could make a point, I suppose, but I don't mind having a radical in there as long as the radical has an IQ above room temperature. RFK and Tulsa Gifford are not whatever.
If you're insulting someone's intelligence,
I shouldn't be appointed.
You have to say their name correct. Yeah.
No, do I? Do I, Ted?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do.
Anyway, so I wouldn't want to be appointed to any of these positions because clearly I'm not smart enough to occupy them. All of this is to say that these are chaos agents, and that's what Trump loves, is chaos. And that's what the Elon Musk thing is. Doge is all about, is chaos. And
chaos is interesting, and it's exciting, and
right.
And it's entertaining. I mean, he understands that American politics has been lacking showmanship for quite some time, and that's what he's trying to bring. I'm not saying I approve of it. I'm just saying that's what's going on.
I don't approve of it either. But thank God, Ted.
I'm not saying I disapprove of it. I'm just pointing it out.
But let me just say, thank God we have a loyal opposition, vehemently, strongly standing. That's the gist of today's podcast, to defend us, the Democratic Party of the United States. And what did the would-be speaker, the minority leader of the House, he said recently, Ted?
Hakeem Jeffries, he said that on Friday at his weekly news conference, what leverage do we have? They control the House, the Senate, and the presidency. It's their government. What leverage? What leverage indeed?
Because
if only there was a party that had found itself in a similar position not long ago on a number of occasions and somehow had managed to exercise all sorts of leverage, that party would be the Republican Party. And of course, under Biden toward the end of his reign, but also particularly under Obama, when the Republicans were in the minority, they gummed up the works considerably, right? I mean, the president at that time was unable to get many of his judicial appointments confirmed. He was denied a vote on his Supreme Court pick. He, of course, well, that's because the Senate was Republican by that point. But also, there were constant threats of filibuster. There were government shutdowns and threats thereof related to the Republicans refused to sign off on budget appropriations. They also were threatening to not increase the debt limit, forcing government shutdowns. They were in the minority at the time, both in 2009, 2010 during Obama's first term, then again in 2014, Mitch McConnell, then the Senate minority leader, key word here, minority, he kept saying that his job was first in that to prevent Obama from becoming a two-term president. That failed. And then he said it was to make sure that he couldn't get anything done at all. Obviously, he couldn't prevent everything. The president has considerable power, especially if he has the House and the Senate in his party's control. But without a Senate supermajority, and without, there are many things that you can't do. And any senator can block any nomination, right? Pocket veto. So, I mean, Scott, you're really good about parliamentary procedure, and what kind of tactics are available.
Oh, you can, yes.
And our system was built to protect minority rights, right?
Absolutely.
We never the founding fathers did not believe that because 50.1% of the electorate wants something, that the other 49.9% have to take it up the ass, right? It was like, so, can we go through some of the things
that way? But yes,
that Hakeem, I don't think that was in the exact letter of the original document. But so what do you think? Can we just sort of go through some of the things that, let's just say, House Republicans can do, House Democrats, sorry, House Republicans can do now, oh my God, House Democrats can do, and Senate Democrats can do to gum up the works of the Trump administration?
Well, filibuster is one, of course. That's always an option. But other options are, especially in the House, it's a 2-vote margin. I mean, it's not like the Republicans are living large like the Democrats did back in the 60s with, 40, 45 seat majorities. This is a razor thin, and there have to be some Republican congressmen who feel either they have morals. I'm sorry, I heard it when it came out. But they do have districts where they may have Democratic constituents that they want to appease, or they aren't quite as far right or as Trumpian as the rest of the House seems to be.
So how do you if you're Minority Leader Jeffries, how do you persuade a moderate Republican to vote against his own or her own party, given the tremendous pressure that MAGA world and the Trump White House is going to be exerting, threatening them with being primaried and cut off from aid assistance from the RNC and so on?
Well, I don't know what you can do to protect them from that, because that is a serious threat that Trump and his minions have not been shy about threatening other congressmen with. I believe that you have to look at, and there's probably a handful, and I mean by handful, I mean 4 Republicans whose districts they do have a sizable Democratic constituency that they have to appease. And so I would say, if I was a Democrat, if I was Jeffries, I'd say we have a lot of money and we can throw into this race and have someone run against you and possibly win. I mean, you're worried about being primaried.
Can you offer, for example, could you offer a liberal Republican, if such a thing exists?
They do.
Or a moderate Republican, could you offer them cover? Like, in other words, we will come and you can join our party. We will fund you if you become a Democrat. Yeah,
that becomes problematic. I mean, that only because if you're a Republican and you won primarily a Republican district, then what advantage of jumping parties? Jumping parties is a tough thing to do. It makes you look
nobody trusts
disloyal. Yeah, no one trusts you. So that's one thing. But legislatively, there's other tricks and things that you can do to slow things down. The Republicans show that there are a whole slew of things that you can do to slow things down or stop them altogether. But you have to stand as one. You have to stand as strongly as a pillar, as a bulwark against what you feel is an existential threat. If these guys believe what they believe, if Jeffries believes what he says, which I doubt, if the Democrats believe what they are spewing, that this is an existential threat to democracy, which means it's an existential threat to the existence of our country, then what other reason would an elected official have to stand firm and to stand up and say, we will fight, and not say, what leverage we got? We don't got no leverage. We're just guys. The only strategy I can see with Jeffries spouting that, and what seems to be the same for Schumer in the Senate, is that they feel these actions are so draconian that they will tank the American economy in very short order, and that in the midterms they will be able to pick up seats and run against things like today, the inflation report. Inflation just ticked above 3% again.
Although, I mean, I don't believe for 1 minute that the 3-week-old Trump presidency is responsible for that.
I think that I'm saying 2 years from now in the midterms,
if that continues,
and if this trend continues, then he's in serious trouble. Well, the fact that, think about it, Ted. I mean, here's an example. He just slapped a 25% tariff on steel and aluminum. Now, I'm going to take a step back and say I have a vested interest. My son is president of an ironworks company, so he does very beautiful work. By the way, it's Red Mountain Ironworks. Go check it out because the work is spectacular. But this means that his costs will go up 25%. Now, not very many people care about that. What do people care about, Ted? Steel and aluminum. Think about those two words, and what do a lot of American foods come in? Cans. What are cans made out of? Well, steel and aluminum. So that means your canned goods are going to go up. Soft drinks are going to go up. Beer is going to go up in price because people, these companies don't just swallow the tariffs. Those costs are passed on to you, the consumers. So things like that. If I'm a Democrat, I'm sitting back saying, okay, let these go through. Let the other policies that he's foisting, let the other massive amounts of layoffs, by the way. And we're not talking about a little bit of layoffs. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of federal workers. That is enough to dent the unemployment rate and make it tick upward. So you have unemployment going up, prices going up. It's now 2026. You're the Democrats. I wish the Democrats were saying that what they would do differently to make those prices go back down. I'm not sure about fuel costs in New York. I know that here in Alabama, the cost of gas has just gone up 10 cents a gallon over the last week or so.
Prices are rising. Yeah.
And so all of those put together, the Democrats could say, look, and I really think that they're hoping that this happens, which, okay, politics, cynicism in politics, what are the odds, right? But if they hope that these things go up, then they're going to campaign on those. But if you don't have anything to campaign about, like we're going to have price controls, we're going to have this or that's going to have
subsidies, tax breaks,
a tangible effect on prices that the American people can look at and say, okay, that's not some social democratic thing that we're going to underwrite. Like in Mexico, they used to underwrite the cost of tortillas. You could buy a huge stack of them for like a quarter. Yeah, but guess what happened? Then people stopped making tortillas because it wasn't a lot of money. Yeah. So the Democrats have to pitch a program that makes sense. I don't see a program, Ted. I see no.
I don't know. I honestly don't think that. Look, I agree with you that Democrats need a program, and I've written. I have written and will write about that again. In fact, my next book is really response to the fact that Democrats don't have a program, but neither does the left. And my book is about what the left program. But be that as it may, I guess the point is right now, Democrats are so despondent that literally they're filling psychologists' offices all over the country because they're so upset about Trump and everything that he's doing. So let
me ask you, how many of your friends would fit in that category, Ted? Seriously,
almost all.
Really, yeah, I would say most of I don't consider you this in that group, but mainstream Democratic Party regulars are all doing exactly. I'm not sure they're going to getting psychiatric help, but they certainly need it because
they're bummed, man. I mean, they're really
beyond
depressed.
Bummed.
Yeah, they're just crestfallen. I think they can't believe the country that they live in. Most of them are just disgusted by the half of the country that voted for Donald Trump, and they just don't like living in the same country as those people. But that's a whole subject. But I mean, the point is, let's get back to Leader Jeffries. He's like, well, what can Democrats do? I mean, isn't it possible for House? We've seen this on the state House level, where there were the runaway Democrats in the Texas State House. Isn't it possible for House Democrats to deny a quorum to the chamber by just leaving Washington?
I'm not sure what quorum is in the Senate, I'll be honest with you, but in the House, yeah, absolutely. Just leave Washington and, hold up in a hotel in someplace in Maryland. I hated that. I hated that the Texas legislators did that. I think it was.
But the point is they can do it.
But yeah, there is dramatic action like that saying we're not going to let this happen. But the thing is, Ted.
And if you want us back, you're going to have to agree to this, that, and the other, right? I mean.
Right. And remember, didn't they send out the police to chase down? No, this was Wisconsin. Wasn't it Wisconsin?
It was, I believe, Texas. It might have happened in Wisconsin as well. I think it's happened at least twice in recent history in different states. And we're probably both right here. And it's, I guess the question now in the case of, I don't know that the Capitol Police would or could come after the congressman if they decided to go into hiding, the House Democrats. Yeah. But even if they did, if they cross state lines, that would be it, right? I mean, they're not going to, extradite them.
I'm not sure what authority they have, but there have been instances where the Capitol Police, they don't have quorum, and they know that a lot of the senators and or congressmen are hiding somewhere and they go and get them or try to,
Really?
or they're out drinking or they're out
That's
doing
happened.
whatever. Oh yeah. Yeah.
And did they go get them
fun.
as like a service? Like, hey, you might have forgotten there's a roll call right now, or.
Well, they give them a lot of black coffee, cold showers, sober them up.
So it's not really that they were hiding for political reasons. They just weren't there.
Some were. Some refused, and there were some that refused, for instance, to leave the cloakroom and go on the floor and hence not have quorum. They go to their offices. There's a lot. You can have that kind of drama, but
you could leave the country.
You could, and so they have these tools. They have this ability, and to again come back to Jeffries saying, what leverage
I know you hate it,
have?
but like let's follow up something else you said. You correctly pointed out that Democrats have repeatedly said during the election and up until now that the country is on the ropes. Democracy is on the way out. Kamala Harris called Donald Trump a fascist. Is he a fascist? Yes, he's a fascist. Okay, so if Hitler is now the Chancellor of the United States, if this is Hitler, you probably, you're in the Reichstag, you take a little trip to Canada, right? I mean, it seems like not a big act of resistance.
Or you stand and you fight. And the reason
How?
And it's, well, like we mentioned what we're saying now, but also rhetorically, you have, it's not, gee whiz, are there any outlets in the United States that would promote your views? I'm trying to think. Oh yeah, all of the mainstream media would.
True.
You have a bully pulpit and you get together, you get your membership together and you say, we have to unify. We're, progressives, centrists, all of us have to unify for now and support this, this way of speaking. We have to be on the same script. We have to propose the same means of fighting this. But Ted, you and I both know, you mentioned history. Look at how did Hitler rise to power? The left shattered. The socialists, split. It shattered. Let's face it, the communists were fighting the socialists were fighting the social democrats, the
communists were fighting the socialists.
And everyone was fighting everybody on the left. So Germany could solidify behind.
But don't forget, it was really the traditional conservatives who turned the country over to Hitler.
Yeah, they formed into coalitions. Same thing in Russia. The left, the opposition to the communists fractured and the socialists fractured. You had the loyalists, you had the people who believed in a democracy, monarch, less democracy. You had monarchists, you had the White Russians. If you don't have a unified opposition, then Donald Trump's going to keep doing what he's doing, which I think much of it is unconstitutional. The purse strings of the United States were deliberately meant to be in the hands of Congress. And
this is an interesting exercise, right? I was going to ask you this. You're right. Only Congress has the power of the purse, but the president, so the executive asks the legislative branch for funding. So here's a question. Once that funding is approved, let's say I'm like, hey, Papa Scott, send your best friend Ted $100, and then you're like, okay, and then so that's it. Like no one can say that you don't send me the $100. But let's say I'm like, no, I don't want to spend that $100. I'm returning it to you. Am I breaking the law if I'm the president? That's kind of what Trump is doing. Is he's refusing to spend money that was allocated by Congress.
Is unconstitutional. You're exactly right, and it's unconstitutional. Oh yeah, absolutely. It's not his place to say whether or not it's going to be spent. It was allocated in a budget approved by the House and the Senate. That's how this works. That's how it was set up. That's what the founding fathers had in mind, very, very specifically, to do this and to. Now you have the Speaker Johnson last night or this morning saying that the president has the right to do this. This is the Speaker of the House essentially ceding that power to the executive branch where it does not belong. Their courts are already saying we're issuing orders that are not being enforced.
Well, and we've already seen that before. Over the past 249 years, Congress has abdicated its power over over war and peace to the presidency.
Exactly.
That's the right to commit troops into battle is exclusively reserved to Congress. But
So one thing I would do if I was the Democrats is to say we're going to spend more money and start thinking more. The Democrats have been lazy. I mean, and that's a kind word to say what they've, in terms of relying on the courts to do their work for them. Roe v. Wade is the most glaring example, right? They had 40 plus years to codify it. They had super majorities several times where they could have codified it and made it federal law, but they wussed out because they didn't want to be painted as baby killers. So why would I do that? Well, the courts are there. This will stand. What could possibly happen to Roe v. Wade? Wah, wah. And now they're screaming, and they don't know what to do other than to say, running on a national ticket, a national platform saying, we're going to codify Roe v. Wade. There, you've just established a policy that I think a lot of Americans and energizes a lot of Americans. But the Democrats
except
won't
Joe Biden.
do that.
Joe Biden and then Kamala Harris made that promise. Nobody believed them because
they didn't do it.
When they had the chance to do it, they chose not to.
I mean, when you had,
even though they had the polls on their side, no problem.
I'm going to have you. I want you to do your best Obama. When Barack Obama had a supermajority in the Senate, had a large majority in the House, they talked about codifying Roe v. Wade, and President Obama said,
"That's not a priority right now."
Yeah, he didn't think it was a priority. Well. Fuck you, you know?
It wasn't to him.
Well, but so what? Do it. Do it as just do it as another piece of legislation. You know, the fact that the Democrats have relied so much on the courts, have ceded so much power over the last couple of decades to the executive branch, and now they're shocked. How many times, Ted, how many times did I say to you, how many times have I said on this podcast, don't give yourself too much power, too much authority, because guess what, kids? You're not always going to be in charge. How many times?
Right.
Hundreds. And guess what, kids? This is what's fucking happening now. And this is what is going to happen as long as Donald Trump is in office, and God knows how long that will be. When they talk about, he's
been flirting with his third term idea.
Yes, tell people how it could happen. Bullet point it for us, Ted.
So, obviously the constitutional amendment, I think it's the 22nd Amendment.
22nd, yes.
Could be amended. But that's hard to imagine because it's really hard to amend the Constitution. The most obvious solution would be for a Vance Trump ticket with Vance they flip. Vance runs for president, Trump runs for vice president, with the promise that on day one, Vance will resign and be perhaps appointed vice president, or anyway, he resigns and then turns over the office to Trump. That would be legal.
Yeah, there's a number of constitutional scholars who say that would work. That tiptoes around the 22nd Amendment. Mm-hmm. It's shady as hell, but gee whiz, has this crew ever done anything shady before? And and how many times had this been proposed in the past? Right? I mean, in my lifetime, it has been proposed several times, and it always was dismissed as, well, that's crazy talk. No one's ever going to do that. That's ridiculous. Who would do that? Well, we just found the guy who would do it. And if Trump still has the level of health, relative health and mental acuity that he seems to have now, 4 years from now, would you be shocked at all to see a Vance Trump ticket?
No, not at all. No, I wouldn't be shocked.
Would you be shocked at all to see it win?
No.
No, neither would I.
No, I mean, especially now, it all depends on how this administration, does. Now, right now, Trump has record approval ratings. You and I both know that he had a hard ceiling of 45%.
Record for him.
Historically, he's never broken 45%. He's now at 53% approval rating, which for him is damn good. So obviously, and like what Americans are liking is that he's keeping many of his promises. He's viewed as energetic and aggressive, and people want to see that. I mean, I've got to say, every time I look at him, I'm like, man, can you imagine a progressive Democrat who behaved like that, like running roughshod over constitutional norms, bullying everyone to get what he wants, ramming through radical, cabinet picks, I'd be like, yay! So of course, if you voted for this, you're really happy. Why would
even if you didn't, even if you were kind of on the cusp, I think you look at this and go, well, shit, this seems to, I mean, he's moving shit ahead. And the problem was for the last 4 years of Joe Biden, because he couldn't, nothing moved ahead. Nothing moved. But Ted, I need you to take a deep breath and consider this, that the Democrats are, this seems to be a thing. Kamala 2028 now more than before. This is ladies and gentlemen, I'm not kidding. This is a thing they're talking about
at the DNC meeting
in
where they
Minnesota,
appointed the new president the new chairman of the DNC. They were talking about it. Well, who's the real, leader of the party? And they were saying, well, it's still Kamala Harris. She was floating around there, and basically giving orders, and as if she were still
orders for
boss.
What? Coffee? I mean, what possible orders, Ted? She didn't.
And they're saying like, on her again. Like she had a great campaign, like as you always say. I mean, so the look. I think that's a separate question. Can Democrats rally? I think job one now would really be to them to try to gum up the works. Let's move over to the Senate, right? I mean, I feel like the Senate, the minority prerogatives of the minority party are more powerful in the U.S. Senate than they are in the U.S. House of Representatives. Correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, you need a 60-vote supermajority to ram shit through. Basically, you have an automatic filibuster, don't you? You can't really just do anything you want without 60 votes. Am I wrong?
No, and with Mitch McConnell under Biden, you had very quietly, when he wasn't, collapsing, he actually ran the Senate, and as did Schumer, fairly efficiently. Things got done, things got passed, judges got approved. I mean, it was a really interesting period of very quiet let's be serious adults here. But now the Trump light is on them, and they don't have that option anymore. But the Democrats could absolutely stop virtually everything if they so chose. I think the Senate takes itself a little more seriously. They really do consider themselves the deliberative body. And so is Schumer, your senator, willing to stand up and say what the Republicans said? We're not going to let this president be successful.
Right. And
he hasn't.
No, he has not. No, he has not. And,
so that's where we are. And the Democrats are impotent, and they show no signs. There's no leadership there. Kamala Harris is your leader. You're in really big trouble. This is not, and people are going to, my Democrat friends are going to scream and yell that, this is misogynist and racist and all that stuff. And it's not. She had the opportunity to prove to us that she was a leader. She's no leader. So find another one. So, and you said she's going around the DNC barking orders to do what?
She's the leader of the pack. She's the boss. Scott,
what does that mean? What does she stand for? Okay, go on. That's a different podcast.
Okay, but that's a different podcast, and it's an important one, and we're going to do it. I want to just ask you, so what do you think is going through the minds of the Democrats? Like, so is there is it possible that there's a jujitsu strategy here where it's like, we're going to let Trump, if one thing we can count on Donald J. Trump to do is to overreach and overextend himself. So we're going to let him have his way. And then he's going to do shit that people hate. And then he's going to be then we're just going to pick up the pieces and we'll say, look, we're not Donald Trump. Vote for us. The end. Is there anything to that, or is that bullshit?
It's bullshit because they've had the opportunity in the past. And what the Democrats have done, you talk about overreach. I mean, impeach him for a story that even the New York Times behind the scenes said was untrue in the Russian collusion case. They had a case, I think, for impeachment for the emoluments, and they ignored that. Mm-hmm. I'm really convinced that the Democrats are just as stupid as the Republicans, and that when Donald Trump fucks things up, and he will, because, he's Donald Trump, you're absolutely right there. The Democrats aren't competent enough to just say, look, he fucked things up. They're going to go way overboard and say, he's destroyed America. We no longer exist. And it's like, well, I'm looking around, I'm looking out my window. It still seems, I'm seeing trees and grass and roads, and it still seems to be here, rather than just say, this is what's happening right now is going to hurt several people, but maybe not people, but eventually they're coming for you, and in 2 years, that's going to happen. In 2 years, people like you, me, middle America, working schmoes, they're going to be affected by these policies in a negative way, I suspect.
Economically, at least, yeah.
Yeah, I have been wrong on so many things when it comes to Donald Trump. I wouldn't listen to me, but I keep talking anyway. My predictions are that the midterms are going to be a catastrophe for the Republicans because the policies, many of which I agree with in principle with Trump, are going to be catastrophes. Look at the midterms in 1982 with Ronald Reagan. The economy really did collapse. We went into a recession. The advantage of that is prices started to go down, which was, when you had inflation at 18%, interest
they were back-to-back recessions, right? I mean, the Federal Reserve pushed they increased interest rates too high, too fast.
Could you imagine interest rates? I mean, it's so funny. People are bitching and moaning about 7%, 6.8% interest rates. And I can remember buying my first house at 10% interest rate, and we bought a point.
I remember the prime rate being 19.5%.
It was 21% for a very short period of time in the 70s. It was one of the reasons Jimmy Carter lost. So is this, I laughed and I giggled, and I'm sorry to all my Democratic friends for giggling at your impotence. Is this jujitsu? That would imply a level of intrigue and intelligence I'm not sure the Democratic Party possesses, Ted. Do you?
Well, I mean, that's a question, right? I mean, is there
it's a question. Do you have an answer?
Well, it brings up another question, which is there a coherent strategy? Is there one or two or three people who are determining the messaging for the Democratic Party, or is it kind of like just a la carte? Like today's a la carte, talking point for the Democrats was, we're not a cheap date. And I was thinking, to all evidence, all the evidence points to the contrary. Right?
You argue, you fuck.
All the evidence is that you
in all the places
for nothing, right? Yeah. I mean, you voted unanimously for Marco Rubio, and right now Marco Rubio is currently in charge of unwinding USAID, which you claim to be mad about, which he couldn't do if you hadn't voted for him.
And not to mention, I mean, he's
any
obviously
single senator could have blocked his nomination.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think
Elizabeth Warren could have woken up with an itch in her ass and just decided, fuck Marco Rubio, he's not going to be Secretary of State.
Yeah, but no, Ted, he's a fellow senators. They vote for fellow senators. That's what they do, and that wasn't going to happen. Rubio, peripherally you could have made the case that he was qualified to do what he's doing.
But this is fascism. This is Nazism. This is Hitler. It's 1933. Buchenwald's about to open.
Well, they are shipping people to your favorite place on the planet,
Guantanamo, the most wonderful place in the world.
I can't believe that they've had any time to upgrade the barracks there. They're
just shipping tents.
Is that it?
That's
tents.
It. Tents.
Well,
they're going to be outside.
Cuba's a pretty temperate climate, right? I mean, it's not hot.
Except when there's a hurricane. No, it gets very
there's
hot.
that too.
It gets very hot.
Ted, I'm being facetious. I'm just saying. Yeah. That's what's his name? The dipshit sheriff from Arizona, Arpaio, did. Remember, he put prisoners. There was the prisons were overcrowded, so he set up a tent city in Arizona in the summer.
Some of them died.
Well, of course, I lived in Arizona during the summer. I almost died, and I just went for a short walk.
And they had to wear pink underwear to boot.
Yeah, it's just,
and you know the rules. Like when you die, you spend all of eternity dressed the way you were at the moment of your death. Those are the rules of the afterlife. So if you're wearing pink underwear when you died, you will be wearing that for all of eternity.
Okay, Ted, I got to ask, what brand of religion is this from?
It's Rawlism. I decided, like, this cartoony thing, as we know, is dying. So I've decided to become a cult leader. Cult leaders can, like, they can have sex with all of their members. They can, like, make all their members kill themselves if they want. They can make up all sorts of ridiculous, shit.
And they get appointed to presidential level, offices, like that crazy woman for Trump's office of divinity or whatever the hell it's called.
Oh, right.
So yeah,
I mean,
it looks like a great thing.
I mean, we're living in an age when a cabinet member bragged about murdering her dog.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. She said it was a bad dog. Bad dog.
Oh God. I guess the rest of the dogs, when she said bad dog, really got into line, though.
I would. Yeah.
Well, going forward, I don't think that the Democrats, I think they're going to wait. They're going to wait and let someone else do the heavy lifting for them. And by that, the heavy lifting is going to be Donald Trump fucking things up.
So in the Senate, what could theoretically Democrats do to resist? I mean,
well, you mentioned it. They
pocket veto, right?
Yeah, well, they could pocket vetoes. I think the purview of the president. I don't think that's a Senate thing.
Okay, so what about? But what about? They could, can't any? Am I mistaken? Any senator can block any nomination.
Well, right? My also understanding is that they could threaten a filibuster. All they have to do is threaten it, and everyone goes, "Oh, okay, so we don't have to go through this. We're going to just table."
Or they could do a real one. With
they could do a real one,
wearing diapers. Like you're a murderous Florida, astronaut.
Astronaut, yeah, diaper astronaut was a story. I
mean, hell, it's the Senate. They're all wearing diapers anyway.
Well, given their age. So yeah, you as a single senator, you could be a troublemaker, but they're not. They've decided to not do that.
So here's the thing: do the American people understand? Do Democratic voters understand that the Democratic Party is not resisting, but that they could resist? Do they believe Hakeem Jeffries when he says, I mean, when Democrats don't do anything, do they just think, well, we're out of power. We don't have the White House. They have the Supreme Court. They have everything. There's nothing we can do. We just have to, better luck in 2 to 4 years. You got to win back something. Do they believe that, or do they know that their party is basically the Washington Generals, is basically Shoeless Joe, right? I mean, do they know that the Democrats are just throwing the game?
Yes, but I'll tell you, and I guarantee you, and you and I know this to be true. Our friends who are the same friends who spewed that Kamala Harris was the best possible candidate and ran the best of all possible campaigns are going to swallow whatever Kool-Aid they're served, and they're going to continue to utter this bullshittery that there's nothing they can do. And you and I have just enumerated over the last 40 plus minutes that indeed there is something they can do, something they should do as the loyal opposition. It's their obligation, but something they won't do.
And so, okay, so why are they? I just want to really.
I'm telling you,
you just said because they're stupid. What is it?
They're stupid. They're lazy. They're lazy. They're stupid. And
they're afraid. I think they're more afraid.
And they're cowards.
What are they afraid of? What do they think?
Because if they step up and they say things like, we're going to block this, then that gives, in their twisted little political minds, that means that the Republicans can turn around and say, see, we wanted to do this thing, whatever it is, that will make America great again. The Democrats stood in the way, and that's why America is not great again. They're afraid of being blamed.
But they will be blamed no matter what.
Of course they will. I know.
Because that's what you do.
Ted, you and I have an IQ above room temperature, so we can see this clearly as we saw Joe Biden was addled. What's that?
No matter what, you will be blamed for anything.
Yeah. So do the right thing. Be boisterous. Be forward thinking. Express and inspire the American people, and they won't do any of it.
Or is it, again, I'm trying to, look, I'm really trying to do, this is a thought exercise, but do we, is it fair to say that part of the analysis for Democrats is, we want to be the adults. We don't want to seem churlish. We want to, pretend like we're cooperative and willing to play ball and compromise with the president and the Republicans whenever possible. Let them be the children, and then the people will see that and they'll turn against the Republicans? Do you think they're thinking that?
That's part of their alchemy. Yeah, is that they will recognize that we're the adults in the room as we sit in the corners sipping our Chardonnay and tisking the children. They will recognize at some point that we should be in charge. Well, okay,
maybe. Yeah. Okay.
No, never, ever. I will challenge you. I mean, that's what the Republicans did for years, and they were in a super minority in the House for those decades where they started.
When did they do that?
In the 60s. They would have Gerald Ford, who was the minority leader, would have a weekly address with the minority leader of the Senate saying what tomfoolery the Democrats foisted on the American people, and we opposed it, but by gum, that's how this is going to be. And tisk, tisk, tisk. Well, what all that led up to until you had the Reaganites and you had, until you had Newt Gingrich say, this is what we stand for. And that's when the Republicans became a majority party in this country. Stand for something, believe in something, fight for something. That's what the Democrats have to do. And they're not doing any of it because they're scared shitless that they will be painted as scurrilous as someone who hates democracy and opposes Donald Trump.
Scott, that's a great place to end and a good message to leave everyone with. Before we go out, I just wanted to ask you very quickly, what do you think? What do you make of the fact that no Democrats, no high-profile Democrats, are willing to criticize Trump's plan to ethnically cleanse Gaza?
They got stung. Democrats got stung by their support of the protesters and the pro-Palestinian protesters. I think the Israeli lobby, with their money and with their influence, showed that that's a dangerous thing to do. So on that topic, the Democrats are going to shut the fuck up. Yeah, which is too bad because, listen, if you believe this, I don't agree with them entirely, but if you believe this, it comes back to what I was saying, Ted. Say it. Stand for it. You're going to be shouted down. You may even have money thrown for your opponent in the primary or in the general election. That shouldn't be what drives you right now. What should drive you right now is standing for something.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. All right, so Scott, where can people find some of your stuff?
Go to gocomics.com/Scott Stantis. Go to gocomics.com/Prickly City to see my political comic strip. Go to Chicago Tribune. Go to Dallas Morning News. Go to smirkonish.com and see all the work I do for them. Ted, where can we see things all Tedian?
GoComics.com/Ted Rall. You can go to Rall.com. You can go to Amazon and pick up my latest book, 2024 Revisited. New book, What's Left, coming out soon, but there's no place to buy it yet. So just keep it in mind. Thank you.
And one last thing, don't forget to check out Center Clip with his mini podcasts, 30 seconds, no longer than 5 minutes. Ted and I both contribute, and it's worth a listen.
Indeed, it is. And there's lots of other good people there too. All right. Thank you, everyone. Scott,
peace.
Let's say some stuff as the outro goes.
Okay. Well, we can sing or we can just talk. We can just blather. What do we usually talk about? Some weather, huh?
Yeah, it's going to be cold or
yeah,
not.
It's cold where you are. Are you going to get the snow?
We missed snow yesterday, so I don't know what happened there. But
all right.
Okay, well, that's it. Bye everyone. Arrivederci.
Keep it real as the